Hi, this is James, and this is a video that I've wanted to make for a while. This is one I've thought about because I got into both these things at the same time. And I didn't make a video on this earlier because I was unsure how to articulate it. And then I realized that's not why I make these videos. I don't really, these are relatively unscripted. There's usually sort of guidelines, sort of pre-planned talking points. That being said, it's not meant to be disrespectful to people who make video essays, or if you enjoy them. I enjoy many, but I'm just saying it's not the most effective, and it's not why I make these. This is about the show Twin Peaks and a specific album I got into at the same time, and how I view them as essentially similar in a multifaceted, a multi-dimensional way. I want to begin this by talking about Twin Peaks' show and how this isn't about the score of the show. I'm only talking about the first two seasons specifically because I think that's what translates the most into this album. So the album is Steve McQueen by Prefab Sprout. If you haven't listened to this album, please do yourself a favor and listen to this. This is pop perfection. This is everything you want out of a pop record and more. I can't describe it besides just pop. I mean, it's this weird example of sort of so many genres coming together that it just becomes pop music. It's kind of the Prince thing where it's like Prince made every genre of music, so it's all kind of pop music, even though you have some Prince albums like Dirty Mind, which is like a funk album, and you go to some of his later projects and it's way more rock influence, or even just the straight pop era of Sign of the Times or 1999, stuff like that. Anyway, this album draws so many parallels, from the beginning. I'm going to go not fully track by track, but kind of track by track. Faron Young, the opener, is kind of this faster intro that kind of sets the tone for a lot of the album. I think it's a really solid opener. I don't think this is the best song from this at all. I actually kind of think it's one of the weaker tracks in the whole track list. That being said, it's kind of similar in some ways to the Twin Peaks movie or pilot episode. That's an hour and a half. The feature length pilot. I'm not going to talk about the shortened version. I'm not talking about the edit of it that alludes to the real killer that was sent to Europe or something. I know there's something with that. Faron Young, I feel like it's a good comparison to that because of the way it's just a tone setter. It's a tone setter, and that's essential to beginning any piece of media. Then it goes to Bonny, and this is the most obvious comparison to just how the town reacts in a way. Everything kind of stops, right? The town of Twin Peaks, after Laura Palmer's death, the way it's kind of depicted in the show, especially in the first few episodes, where it's the funeral, and you see Bobby has the big reaction and argues with James, and when the more you find out, I want to say this is full of spoilers for this show. Please watch the show before this. You can, maybe you haven't listened to the album yet. That's all right too, but don't watch this before you've seen the show. Regardless, that kind of funeral era when Dale Cooper first gets there, and everyone's kind of in this state of shock of this realization of wow, maybe this town has a lot of problems going on and things aren't just good. Bonny is a sort of regret. I count the hours since you slipped away is the main kind of lyric that repeats. Appetite is kind of about that sort of pervasive evil. In a way, it kind of summarizes the tone of the whole nothing is enough for Bob, and for Bob, it's all about becoming Laura. It's becoming inhabiting other people in a lot of ways, and it starts mainly from, it really starts from men who in a way are being predatory in some form or fashion. Then it goes into the track When Love Breaks Down. Now this song is kind of perfect for I'm going to call every single James dynamic in the show. Every time James has any dynamic with a character, it's just this song. Everything's about James running away. He always is running away, driving away. And I know there's this stuff about his mother in the show. Regardless, with all his relationships, everything's about him, something going wrong, and then him reacting to it and being I have to go. That's everything that happens. This is what he does. And I love this show And I like James's character. Don't get me wrong. I know he's not the most beloved by everyone because he looks weird, and he has like the one scene of him singing in season 2. But you kind of got to feel sympathy for the guy, because everything he does touch kind of goes wrong at a certain level, and he's very well aware of it. Then Goodbye Lucille, number 1. This track reminds me a lot more of when Bobby's talking to the therapist. And I think Bobby's character is really interesting because you never really fully like him or dislike him. Even when he's being like so annoying and awful, you still have this weird sort of reaction to him, which is like, yeah, but he's like a kid still. Like, he still has that like teenage mindset. He's such an adolescent at heart and head that you kind of forgive him in a way, even though he's awful at times. But when you really remember the beginning of this, which is his attachment to Laura Palmer and his dynamic with her that gets destroyed. And I mean, it's humiliating for him in the same way it's humiliating for James in a way. And it's not really... I mean, it's explored definitely early in the show, but in season 2, his stuff with Shelley is more at the forefront of it. I think this track kind of summarizes a lot of those feelings. And you get to like Hallelujah, and I think that track is kind of this transfer, what I'm going to call the season 2. It's this weird track in a way that kind of is like the first episode of season 2, in that it's a little bit longer than some of the other songs that follow, but it really is just this transfer. It's kind of dreamy in a way. It's kind of surreal. Perfect for the transfer into season 2. Perfect for the transfer into the second half of this album. Yes. So then, it kind of perfectly aligns. The next 2 tracks, Moving the River and Horsing Around, these 2 songs to me are distinctly the 2 like least important, worst tracks on this album. That's otherwise pretty much perfect. And Moving the River and Horsing Around kind of symbolize when David Lynch had less control over the show and the studio had more control. And all of a sudden you see the episode, certain shots are kind of weird and not necessary, not fully Lynchian either. Long intros, a lot of cold opens that are really odd. Not to mention the fact that they kind of speed up a lot of the plot. And that's kind of how I feel about Moving the River and Horsing Around. Horsing Around kind of symbolizes a part of season 2, which is like focusing on like James with the older woman and that whole plot line, which feels so unnecessary in the grand scheme of the show, because it's like there's so much more stuff going on, and the amount of time that's spent on that is so disproportionate compared to what I have the most stakes in, what I'm the most interested in. Like, the stuff with Josie is so interesting, and trying to unpack that during that stretch of the show. And then you have the stuff with James that occupies so much time. And that's kind of how I feel about like Horsing Around and Moving the River. It's like that kind of stretch of the show. Then there's the return to form. This is the late season 2. Desire As, Blueberry Pies, and When the Angels. Now, Desire As is, I feel like, refocusing to the broader point. With this album, a lot of the music is about a lost love. It's not really hard to tell. And it's very mourning like that feeling, mourning that time with that person, mourning their understanding of that person. It's why this album is so effective, with the fact that it's pop, but it still contains these messages. And I'll touch on this after I kind of cover the tracks and their connection to the show. But Desire As is the return form, refocusing on Bob, the evil. Then Blueberry Pies is kind of this like setup for the end. Blueberry Pies, I think, is a solid track, but it's a quick track, and it's really going into When the Angels. When the Angels perfectly embodies a Twin Peaks season 2 finale. I can't explain it better than that, in the sense of it's this chaotic recapturing of everything you love about the show. Everything that you love about the album is in this song. It's faster. It's got so much going on. It's got the weird synths, but it works, and it's got the lyrics that like really kind of fit the mood of it. And while When the Angels, I think, is more uplifting than the season 2 finale, I still believe firmly that like both sort of cover everything that you want it to cover. Both leave you wanting more from the group or from the show. And that kind of is why it perfectly embodies that finale. It's that perfect, crossover between what is achievable in a pop setting, what is achievable in a TV setting, and what gets all the emotions out, what gets everything through in the most potent, powerful, and really concise way. Now, I will say a lot of the songs on this album, for a pop album, there's like 5-minute songs. There's a lot of 4-minute songs, which doesn't sound crazy for any other genre, but because it's pop, it's really impressive because when you're listening, the songs don't feel long. They feel short, beautiful, amazing, done, Yeah, so I think that's really like my main thing with why I feel like these two are the same. Now, I'm going to go into like the external stuff that kind of makes it the same. First is the album cover. James looks like he could be a part of this band with the whole motorcycle and like the looking at the camera like that, And not only that, but just the color grading on it and the whole leaning into the greens and the nature of it and all of that really screams it. And it's like the whole small town aesthetic. When you really think about it, Twin Peaks is just a surrealist soap opera. That's why it's so good. Is because it's taking something that would be cheesy and turning it into something abstract sometimes, really good and interesting. You want to break it down. It's the same thing with a track like When Love Breaks Down on here, because a lot of the lyrics on this album, but specifically that song, because I think it perfectly embodies it, are so corny, out of context. Same thing with the dialogue of Twin Peaks. If you isolate almost any scene that has any ounce of emotion, even the normal scenes, even stuff where it's just like talking to Lucy and it's like kind of this comedic moment. If you isolate it, you're like, this is corny. What? Or even just like what's the deal with the fish in the percolator? You know what I mean? Like it's cheesy, out of context. But when you're listening, you buy it because of the performance, because of the way it's done. That's what makes good popular art good, is because it takes something universal and it makes it feel personal. That's the truest achievement of something popular. That's how you know it's a success. That's why when you hear certain songs on like pop radio, mainstream pop radio, you feel so disappointed and you're like, this is so bad, because you feel how disingenuous it is. This show has many lines that are so cheesy, but I don't feel like it's disingenuous. Like, I've spent most of this video talking about James in the show, and I'm not the biggest James fan in the show, but a lot of his dialogue is like so corny, but it's done in a way that kind of redeems itself. Same thing with a lot of Dale Cooper. Agent Cooper, most of his dialogue, when you isolate it, if you heard it from someone else, you'd be like, this cornball is so stupid. Like, you'd be like, this is so awful. But it's the way he does it. Makes it feel, you believe in his character. You believe his character is a good person. Obviously the stuff at the end, but like, you wholeheartedly are behind him and he feels perfect. He feels like he always has the right thing to say. He's the comfort character in the show compared to everyone else. That's why he's at the heart of the show, when in reality, the show is more about Laura Palmer's life for most of it, up until a certain point, and then it's about Bob, and then it's about Dale Cooper's, arch nemesis, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's remarkable how you can turn something that in any other situation would be mediocre and turn into something good, and that's why I think this album is so good. A lot of the production habits and arrangements are so dated in a lot of ways, but it doesn't matter. When you're listening, it doesn't matter. You aren't thinking about that. That's why I think a lot of people get lost when listening to music, when they try to look at things objectively, is they get lost in thinking, well, this mix would be different now. It doesn't matter if it would be different now. It was effective then and it's still effective now. And it's the same thing with Twin Peaks. It's why Twin Peaks, despite only lasting 2 seasons, is still an iconic piece of American filmmaking and screenwriting and directing. It's because when something is well made, even for the time, even for now, it translates. And the whole thing, if you look at the camera quality of this show, it's not even up to par with a lot of its contemporaries at the time. If you look at a lot of aspects of the show, when you look at the show, almost all the actors that are bigger actors are a part of it, besides David Duchovny's character, were big in the time because they worked with David Lynch. It's not like he was getting these big Hollywood names at the time to play these characters, with exception. I mean, like, there are certain characters that are played by bigger names, but like, really, I mean, when you make something that is this stable and this beautiful, even though there's moments of it that may not be good, like parts of season 2 or in this album, Moving the River and Horsing the Route, to me are very much weak points of the project. But it doesn't matter when you finish it. You still feel like it's perfect. It really encapsulates the true greatness of both of these media. And yeah, I know this was a longer video. I've wanted to make this for a while. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around through this whole thing, thank you so much. And subscribe, check out my music. I make music, and I have a lot more music on the way. Look out for it when it comes out. Thanks for watching.